Hey everybody, it's Steve and welcome to another clay mesh tutorial. In this one I'm going to be going over another Philogix PBR Painter Pro tip. You can find that in the Blender Market, and it really doesn't matter for this particular tutorial which version you're using. You can be using 2 or 3, doesn't matter. And right here at blendermarket.com, as you can see in the link above, and I will have the link below as well. Philogix does sponsor this video, and they appreciate your support in the Blender Market as part of the creators and keeping Blender free with all the amazing add-ons so they can keep producing a lot of good content. And so once you've bought that, you can go through some of my beginner tutorials on this where I teach you all the basics. And with that, no more delays, let's jump right in and learn. And the cool tip is going to be how to add emissions to your brushes. And just because I like version 2.0 brushes that come static with it, that's the one I'm using. But of course, like with Blender Kit and all the other things, you can have a ton of brushes. So let's jump right in. Alright, so we just got our basic cube here, and nothing special about this one, but we do have to save it. So I'm just going to Control S and I'll save this as Untitled like 7. So I've been doing quite a few of them. And I've got a new pick shader here, so this one I'm just going to be calling this one cracks because it's going to have cracks on it. And once it's saved, obviously we go and we do our bake, and it's just a cube, so I'm going to bring it up to 4096. I'm going to grab the ambient, normal, the edge mark, and the curvature, and I'll just go ahead and bake that. Now if you have a much slower PC, bring the quality to 4 and stick with something like 1024. You can do 512, but it doesn't look as good. So if you can get away with 1024, fine, but this will allow you to go to a much lower resolution. Okay, with my bake finished, I did turn on screencast keys so you can follow along. And what I'm going to do now is collapse the bake menu as usual, and I'll go ahead and add a base layer. And my base layer, I'm going to leave it to UV for now. So let's choose something that everybody can see. I'm liking, let's do the iron roll this time. And I'm going to jump over to material preview. And apparently I've got some kind of background going on here. What is that? This sky texture. Oh yeah, I saved that as my default. I get really tired of seeing the basic setup, like when you go in and you just see the non-scene light, non-world the basic HDR that is provided. I just don't like it. Alright, so simple cube, looks kind of good. Not really any real height information on this. I suppose you could consider the bump map on here height information, but it's just kind of fakery, not really. So what I'll do is I'll just go over here and add a layer, and this layer is going to be an anchor, and now I can anchor each one of these channels if I wish with this one anchor. So what I want to do is bring out the paintbrush. I'll come down and just click paint, and I'm at 4096. I'm going to be kind of careful with this so I don't crash Blender. If I make my brush too big, I think it's probably going to crash it. So let's give this a little test run, shall we? Alright, so I obviously couldn't see what's going on there. The cracks weren't really visible, so I'm just going to change this to something like red. Maybe bring it down a touch. Make the brush a little bigger. My strength seems to be all the way up, but you can Control F and bring that up as well. Hey, look at that, then we can see the cracks. We're just going to kind of add a few cracks here, nothing too crazy. And I'm going to bring the brush all the way up. I'm going to give it a try. Oh wow, it's working really well. I was just thinking in the 4096 it would be ready to crash it, but it's obviously not. So I'm going to add like a little bit of stress right here, and then change colors to like a bright orange. I don't know if you can even see that. It's not bright enough. Let's brighten it up. Let's bring this up a little bit on the slider. it adds a little bit of interestingness to it, which is the goal. And now I can bring in these more lightning looking cuts here. And I'm a big fan of blue. I love the color blue. Maybe it's just because you can do lightning bolts with it. Paint this thing anywhere you see fit. Just give it a good once over. It doesn't have to be done any particular way. I like adding the variable sizes, and then kind of like along these bigger streaks you can add some more detail. To bring it up just a little bit. Alright, so that is very hard to see, but it's there, and so it's just extra detail. Alright, back around to my front view. And now I'm going to change the brush a little bit so you can get an idea of some other stuff here. And this is like my splatter brush, right? So if we come over and choose like a purple, and then the strength isn't all the way up on this, so I'm going to push that up a little bit, and then you've got some nice splatter. And I like the brushes in the 2.0. I think that those 4 brushes, it was like 4, right? 5, 6, can't count today. But these 6 brushes, I just don't know what you can't do with them. I mean, I think they're pretty amazing. So, like, you've got a splatter, you've got the veins or cracks, if you will, and then you've got this right here, which is more like a frosting. If you check out the website, the guy's got, it's like he's adding an alpha hashed on glass with this and putting rust on the actual glass, and then he opens up the alpha channel of the material he's working on, and it's really cool. So I think that's pretty good for now. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to turn off the scene lights and the scene world so that I can get a good look at the emission. So I turned off the scene lights and scene world just so I can get a good look at what I did. I like that a lot, just kind of abstract and veiny. So I'm going to click finish. You always have to do that, and then it saves it, and you can control save just in case, because it may tax your computer a lot and you don't want to lose this. And of course, as always, you can, if you're happy with what you've got, you can come through here and export all of these and then put them on different models as you see fit. Just make sure your margin, quality, and size all match. Choose a file path, click exporting. Doesn't have to be highlighted because it will highlight when you click it. Be aware that is going to take a while to export, and if that's a UV map that's for a cube, then you're going to have to use it on a cube. So let's go ahead and get over to the emission channel, and now I'm going to, I just call this dropping the anchor. So I'm going to drop an anchor onto the emission channel, and obviously nothing has happened, but I have to come down here and then select material 2B. It usually comes up material 2B unless you add extra materials and like you add extra layers. So now we've got all this as an emission, which is really cool. So now I'm going to come over to height, and I'm going to drop an anchor on height. And now I can select to Bravo and give it just a moment, and voila. It may not look entirely like there's a bunch of depth there, but it is, and it gives it a little nice ring to it. So you can kind of bring the, there we go. So now you could kind of play around with this and mess with the mixing, mess with the opacity, and do whatever you want with it if it's a little too intense. So if I turn on scene lights and scene world and then come over here, and I could probably just turn down my strength, and then you can see. And I really like how this comes out. You can do this on any model. You can choose, you know, any kind of brush you want, as long as you can get something onto the model. And that's pretty cool, right? So there's a little bit of depth there. I think the higher resolution actually almost kind of gives it a depth. You can see like there's almost a background, and it's like this web you're going through. But anyways, hope that helps everybody out, and drop those anchors, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Make sure to subscribe and smash that like button. Thank you.